The studio lights were hot, the kind that made your skin feel tight and exposed, and Miguel Santos felt them immediately as he adjusted himself in the guest chair. The host smiled too widely, the kind of smile that didn't reach the eyes, and Miguel noticed it but chose not to react. He had learned long ago that reacting too early was a mistake. He folded his hands neatly on his lap, posture straight, breathing slow. This was live television. There was no rewind button. Miguel had flown in from Manila just 2 days earlier. His body was still confused by time zones, but his mind was sharp. It had to be. He wasn't there as a novelty. He was there because his software had quietly saved millions of dollars for international logistics companies, because his work had been cited by researchers who never bothered to pronounce his name correctly, because he had earned that chair under those lights. Still, as he sat there, he could feel it, that familiar tension that came whenever he opened his mouth in rooms like this. The host leaned forward. "So, Miguel," he said, dragging the name out slightly, tasting it. "You grew up in the Philippines, right?" Miguel nodded. "Yes. I was born and raised there." "And English isn't your first language?" "It's one of them," Miguel replied calmly. "We grow up with several." The audience chuckled lightly, not malicious yet, but curious. The host tilted his head. "Interesting. Because when you speak English," he paused, then mimicked Miguel's accent, exaggerating the rhythm, twisting the vowels. "It sounds a bit different." There it was. The studio laughed. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to make the sound echo. Miguel didn't flinch. Inside, though, memories rose like ghosts. Classrooms where classmates snickered when he read aloud. Online meetings where his ideas were ignored until repeated by someone with a flatter accent. Emails that started with praise and ended with subtle doubt. He had carried those moments with him quietly, stacking them one by one, never dropping them, never forgetting. The host laughed along with the audience. "I mean no offense," he said, which Miguel had learned usually meant the opposite. "It's just, you sound funny." Funny. That word had followed him across oceans. Miguel smiled slightly, not because he found it amusing, but because he understood something the host didn't. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was live. Millions were watching. Somewhere in Quezon City, a call center agent was on break, glancing at the screen. Somewhere in Cebu, a student was eating dinner with her family, the TV murmuring in the background. Somewhere in London, a Filipino nurse had the show playing quietly in the staff room. Miguel leaned forward, just a little. "May I respond?" he asked. The host waved his hand casually. "Of course. Go on." Miguel spoke slowly, clearly, not adjusting his accent, not flattening it. "You're right. I do sound different. Because English did not arrive in my life through movies or luxury schools. It arrived through textbooks printed decades ago. Through teachers who learned it under fluorescent lights and passed it on to us with pride. Through necessity." The laughter faded. The audience shifted. Miguel continued. "My accent carries heat, traffic, monsoon rains, overcrowded classrooms, and long nights studying by generator light. It carries survival. So yes, it sounds different. Because it was earned differently." The host's smile stiffened. Miguel didn't stop. "But let me ask you something. When you understood everything I just said, did my accent fail, or did it succeed?" There was a pause. A real one. Live TV hates silence, but the silence stayed. Social media didn't wait. Clips of the moment began spreading before the show even cut to commercial. Someone recorded their screen. Someone else added captions. Within minutes, timelines started filling with the same line. Did my accent fail, or did it succeed? Back in the studio, the host cleared his throat. "Well, Miguel gently raised a finger. Not aggressive. Controlled. "I'm not finished." The audience murmured. "When people mock accents," Miguel said, "they are not mocking intelligence. They are mocking history. English is not owned by one country or one mouth shape. It adapts. It travels. And when it does, it changes. That change is not a mistake. It's proof that people survived long enough to use it." The red light on the camera blinked steadily. The host shifted in his seat. The power dynamic had changed, and everyone felt it. By the time the show ended, Miguel walked offstage to polite applause. It wasn't thunderous, but it was real. The host avoided eye contact. Producers whispered urgently behind the scenes. Miguel collected his coat and phone and stepped outside into the cold evening air. That's when his phone began to vibrate. Non-stop. Messages poured in from numbers he hadn't spoken to in years. former classmates, distant cousins, colleagues who usually stayed silent, notifications from platforms he barely used. The clip had gone viral. 10 million views in 6 hours. Hashtags followed. #accent is not a flaw. #Filipino English. #he said what we felt. But it wasn't just praise. It was confession. A teacher in Canada posted that she had corrected students' accents for years and was rethinking everything. A British recruiter admitted, publicly, that he had filtered candidates based on communication fit. A news anchor apologized on air for laughing at a guest's pronunciation years earlier. In Manila, students replayed the clip on cracked phone screens, volume low but eyes wide. In hospital corridors, nurses paused mid-shift. In construction sites abroad, men gathered around a single device, nodding silently. The host's network released a statement the next morning. Carefully worded. Regretful. Promising internal review. Miguel woke up to it all in a small hotel room, sunlight filtering through thin curtains. He sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, feeling something unfamiliar tight in his chest. Not anger. Not pride. Relief. Later that week, the network invited him back. This time, the invitation was formal. Respectful. No jokes. No tone. When Miguel returned to the studio, the host stood up before he reached the chair. "I owe you an apology," the host said, live, voice steady but eyes uncertain. "What I said was wrong." Miguel nodded once. "Thank you." That was it. No speech. No lecture. He didn't need one anymore. As the show ended, the audience stood. Louder than before. When Miguel walked out into the night, reporters called his name, mispronouncing it, correcting themselves, trying again. He didn't mind. Trying mattered. Weeks later, the clip stopped trending. As all things do. But something had shifted. In classrooms, accents were no longer corrected first. In meetings, ideas were listened to longer. In living rooms across the Philippines, parents told their children, "Speak. Don't shrink your voice." Miguel returned home quietly. No parade. No ceremony. Just family, warm food, familiar sounds. He sat on his balcony one evening, city lights flickering below, and practiced nothing at all. He didn't need to. His accent had already spoken. The applause eventually faded, the headlines moved on, and the world found a new thing to argue about. But for Miguel, the echo of that moment never really disappeared. It followed him in quieter ways, in emails that now began with respect instead of hesitation, in meetings where no one rushed him to repeat that more clearly, in invitations that no longer treated him as a curiosity but as a voice worth hearing. One evening, weeks after the storm had passed, Miguel received a message from a teenage girl in Iloilo. She wrote that she used to rehearse her English silently before class, terrified of laughter. That day, she raised her hand and spoke without apology. "They listened," she wrote. Miguel stared at the screen for a long time before replying, his eyes burning in a way he didn't expect. Across oceans, small shifts continued. A talk show host corrected a guest who mocked an accent. A teacher paused before interrupting a student. A recruiter caught himself making assumptions and stopped. None of it made the news. None of it needed to. The change was happening in places cameras rarely looked. Miguel never became a motivational speaker. He never sold the moment. When asked about it later, he said only this: "I didn't defend my accent. I used it. And people understood." Years later, in another studio, another young Filipino sat under bright lights, voice steady, vowels warm and unmistakable. No one laughed. No one flinched. They listened from the first word. And somewhere, watching quietly, Miguel smiled, not because the world had changed all at once, but because it had changed just enough to let a voice arrive without fear.